everyone, welcome and thank you for coming out this evening as we continue our sort of loose theme of New Year's resolutions going on this January. My name is Erin Shea and I'm the head of adult programming here at the library. And I would just like to briefly mention that programs here are made possible by our annual Friends of the Library campaign. So thank you so much for your support in making programs like these available to the community. One of my New Year's resolutions this year was to try and start tracking when programs have new people attend the library. So I'm wondering, and I'm not going to make you do anything, don't worry, I'm wondering if anyone here is attending a library program for the first time. You could just raise your hand. Okay, excellent, thank you, and welcome. That's great to see. So tonight's presentation is going to be about habits and why we form habits, how we form habits, and how you can start your day with 10 productive habits. Our presenter tonight is the founder of the Seana method. She was here, I think about a year ago, to talk about organizing when you have little kids, and she really knows her stuff and she's excellent, and we're very lucky to have her here tonight. So please join me in welcoming Seana.
Gosh, that was a nice introduction. Thanks, Erin. Habits. So we're hoping that the computer will work. I'm excited to be here and start off and talk about a little bit. And just so you know, if you would like to know what I'm saying tonight and you don't want to have to write it down, I have cards on the table. You can grab one and email me, and I will email you a summary tonight. So you don't have to spend the time writing unless you want to, okay? So the question that we need to start with is, what are habits? What are habits, anyway? That's one answer to the question, right? A garment worn by nuns. But that's not what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the habits that you know, which are routines of behavior, which are repeated regularly, which we do over and over. And we're going to learn a little bit more about, we perform them almost subconsciously. Almost subconsciously. Some of them are good. Some of our habits are good, like thank you, Mom, for making us brush our teeth twice a day, because most adults I know have continued that behavior, so that's good. Some of them maybe are not so good. Any nail biters in the audience out there know? Hard to stop, but not terrible. And then a lot of our habits really are neither good nor bad. There's no plus or minus, just things we do. So I put this picture up. My husband was an engineering student, and in engineering school, back when we were in college, the popular thing to do was to twirl your pen. If you were an engineer, you practiced this to be able to whip it around on the 360 on the side of your finger. And if you went into the engineering building, there they all were, thinking and twirling their pen. So it's kind of fun, but it's not really a good or bad thing. So habits can be good, bad, or neutral. But the important question to understand is, how are we forming them? Because when we understand how we form them, that's going to help us know when we want to make a change. How are we going to go about doing that? Okay? So I'm going to put up a graphic. It's a very simple reinforcement loop. At the top, there'll be some sort of trigger in our lives. So for example, you're sitting in the kitchen, it's 4 o'clock, and you're bored. So that's the trigger. And then that takes us down to, we need to perform some behavior in response to the trigger. So my popular response to the bored trigger is, I eat cookies, because I'm a muncher. So that's what we do. We perform a behavior, and then here's the really important part. There is some payoff then that comes from the behavior. In the case of eating cookies, for me, that would be a, wow, yum, that was good, right? I have a positive association with the behavior I just did. And if I have a positive association, chances are the next time I'm up top in the trigger, that same trigger, I am now more likely to repeat that behavior because it was positive for me. And then I'll once again have a positive response and back up to the trigger. And so this will go on. Is this making sense? Right? It's not that complicated. It's interesting to note when you look at this to understand why we frequently form bad habits more easily than we form good habits. The answer being that a bad habit frequently gives us an instantaneous positive payoff. So when I eat cookies, I immediately experience the delight in my mouth of eating the cookie, right? In contrast, many of the things that are good for us, we won't see the benefit the first time we do it. So for example, if I decide I need to get in shape, if that's my trigger, and I decide I'm going to go run 5 miles, which I never, ever, ever do, my immediate payoff is probably going to be out of breath and sweaty and sore, none of which are particularly fun and positive in the short term. If I continue to do it anyway, in 3 months, I might feel great. I might look better and feel better and be able to do it easily, but in the short term, I may not. And that can be the case with many good habits, as the payoff comes over performing something over a period of time, or sustaining from doing something over a period of time. So if you form bad habits more easily, that's normal. The payoffs are sooner. Now, here's another little interesting thing. I put a star there. And this is perhaps the most scientific part of what we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm not a scientist, but this is how I understand it. The first time that we have a trigger and we want to choose a behavior in response, we're going to be thinking about it. We're going to be engaging the part of our brain that makes decisions, which is called the prefrontal cortex, right here. It's also that part of the brain, if you're a parent, you've been hearing, that doesn't develop until the teenagers are 25 years old. So that's the part of the brain that we're going to use when we're thinking about how to respond to a trigger. So, for example, the first time, let's say you're in 6th grade and you go to middle school and you walk into the lunchroom on the first day. That's a huge trigger. Where am I going to sit? How am I going to eat? What order? What do I talk about? What do I not talk about? Where do I put my tray? How do I throw away my trash? Should I get in the line? How do I pay? Trigger, 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 trigger. All these triggers are coming at you that you need to respond to. And your front of your brain, the very active thinking decision part of your brain, is having to make choices all along. Okay? However, after you go through this loop a couple of times, what happens is that the brain amazingly moves the decision from the front of your brain, where you're having to think and decide, to another part of your brain, which is back here. It's called the basal ganglia. And it performs this decision without having to take much energy at all from the front of your brain. Okay? So that is what a habit is. It's when something we do moves from this part of our brain to this part of our brain. And once it hits that part of our brain, it gives us some benefits. The primary benefit being that you no longer have to expend so much energy making a decision. So the brain is actually finding a way to be very efficient, which is amazing, I think. It's really amazing. Here's a quote I read. Even though it's hard to learn how to back your car out of the driveway at first, and I have a 16-year-old, so I can say this is true, and a very long driveway, once it becomes a habit, you can do it almost automatically, and you can think about something else, like a meeting that you're going to go to today, or what's on the radio. Does that make sense, right? Can you remember when you were learning to drive and it took every ounce of concentration to back down? But now, you get on, you move, you almost aren't thinking about it. Your brain is still performing all the functions. Your eyes, your ears, everything's working, but you're not having to put as much energy into it. So it's a great thing when you train your brain to do something like that. But there's a second reason why habits really, really matter to us. And that is that they end up defining us. So the first day you go in the lunchroom, you don't know. Maybe a couple of days later, you get defined as the person who sits at this table. If you're someone who does some sort of very outward habit that people notice, you get defined by that. Aristotle said, what we are what we repeatedly do. We are what we repeatedly do. Someone uh-oh'd in the front row. And then he went on to say, excellence then is not an act, but it's a habit. First, we form habits, and then they form us. So they're very, very powerful. Once we form the habit, it is very powerfully a part of us, for good or for bad. Which leads us to the question, and part of why we're here, can we form new habits? So I say, obviously, I would say yes, or I wouldn't be doing this talk. We can form new habits. And I'd like you to think about forming new habits rather than trying to break old bad habits. Because breaking a bad habit is very difficult. Once again, it's now implanted in an almost automatic part of our brain. So if you try to break something, which means just cease it, just stop it, just withdraw it from your life, that's very hard. A better approach is to say, I have this bad habit. When this trigger happens, I do this. That's not what I want to do. So I'm going to choose to do something different in light of the trigger. And what happens is you squeeze out the bad habit, because now you've got something else that's taken place. So it's a replacement rather than trying to stop something bad, which comes down to a lot of sort of that self-control, self-discipline, and that's just really difficult. So better to just start something new that you want to do and squish out what you don't. Obviously, if we're going to form a new habit, we're going to have to re-engage this part of our brain when the trigger happens, right? That frontal cortex, we're going to have to act differently and not allow that automatic behavior to continue. Now, here's something very interesting to think about. It's a lot easier to form a new habit when you put yourself in a new environment. When you're in the old environment, you have really formed these patterns with everything that you do during the day. For example, when I shower at home, I just seem to do everything in the same order every time. I get in the shower, I rinse my hair, I wash my hair, I put the conditioner on, I soap up, I do left and then right. I do the same thing every time. However, I went on vacation over Christmas, and I did not do everything in the same order, largely because all my stuff wasn't in the same place. So I got in the shower, realized, oh, I don't have my razor. I got back out of the shower, I got back in the shower. I couldn't put my foot up where I would at home because it wasn't in the same place. I didn't have as much conditioner. So suddenly, my frontal cortex was firing like crazy because everything was different anyway. I couldn't do it on autopilot because it was too different. So what does that mean? That means that, hey, if you're on vacation, that might be a really great time to start forming a new habit. We just went on vacation. My husband started jogging. He doesn't have time to jog when he's home, but he started jogging, and he's found a way to continue it. It's easier to do when you're away. Or when you have a life event and, like a new baby comes on the scene and you can't do anything the way you used to do it anymore anyway. Crazy as it may sound, that might be a good time to start a new habit, to start trying to do something, thinking about it differently. Of course, the sum of all this is, if you spend too much time thinking, just thinking about changing, right, you'll never get it done. It's going to require that we take action, that we pull this part of our brain back up and make a decision and take an action. And remember, the loop, it probably won't take all that long if you just keep at it. And the payoff is going to be when it moves back here and that new habit you wanted becomes automatic. What a great thing. So now we're going to move into the 10 habits. And I want to say two things before we start. The first is, I don't expect anybody here to do all 10. That would be an enormous amount of life change. If you do it, fantastic. But that's not really my goal. My goal would be to show you 10 different habits that I see people do that are effective and productive, and maybe spark your idea to try one of these. So don't feel like, oh gosh, I got 10 things I got to go home and do. Okay? If you find even one, that would be great. And the second thing is, when I start to talk about habits or organizing, a lot of times people start to feel guilty. Like, oh, I don't do that right, and I don't do that right, and I should do that right, and oh, I wish I did that. And it's a real downer. And I don't want anybody here to feel that way. This is not a time for you to be critical or condemning yourself or anything like that. This is a fun evening, and hey, if you see something you like, great. And if you hear all 10 and you think none of those are for me, well, I hope you had a fun time anyway, and that's fine. Okay, so please don't sit here and start to feel badly about yourself. That would make me very sad. That's not what I want to do. Okay, those are my 2 disclaimers. All right, so we're going to talk about going on the good habits instead of the bad habits, forming the good, which will squeeze out the bad. And as I said, you know, New Year's, most people start talking about eating well and exercise. And while those are both great things, I'm not talking about either of them. That is not what I do. I thought about putting one of those big, you know, red circles with the line through it, and then I thought, well, that might seem like I think those are bad ideas, which I don't. If you like to eat well and exercise, good for you. But that's not me. That's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to do 10 productivity organizing habits. My goal is to make your life smoother and more pleasant and less complicated, more predictable, less stressful. So that's what these habits are going to be about. First habit. Put it away now. And be bold and italic on now. Look, I know it is very tempting to just put things down. I get it. Life is complicated. Things are always going on. People are handing us things at all times of day. We're in the middle of something else. It is challenging. But here's what I would like you to think about. Let's say my daughter walks in and hands me some paper, and the paper needs to go in a file. That would be its ultimate home. And let's say it takes me, I'll even throw it up to 90 seconds to walk to my file cabinet, open my drawer, find the appropriate file, put the paper in, close the drawer, and walk back. And I think 90 seconds is probably even plenty. But let's say it takes 90 seconds. If I do not put the paper away now, and I put it down, at a minimum, I'm making 90 seconds worth of work for myself in the future. At a minimum, I'm making 90 seconds of work for myself in the future. More likely, I'm making more than 90 seconds. Why? Because what's going to happen when tomorrow she comes in and hands me another piece of paper, and that gets put down on top of it? Or my husband walks in from the airport and does this, which he does, and he pulls everything out of his pockets, and that all goes on top of it. Or it's sitting on the counter and food gets splattered on it, and now I have to clean it off as well as put it away. So even though it feels in the moment like it's taking more time to put it away, it is not taking more time, and it may take less time. Because everything tends to pile up. Few of us have acres of horizontal space on which to put things. So they inevitably do this, right? And then this gets lost. And then we stumble upon the thing at the bottom. Please come in and sit if you'd like. You don't have to stand. Make yourselves comfortable. If you have to leave early, that's fine, whatever. They tend to pile up, and then that makes it harder. It's harder for us to find, it's harder for us to act on, and it will take more time for us to put it away. Now, one side note to this. If you perhaps are taking care of a small child, I understand that you can't perhaps run upstairs and put something away because you're watching a little child. There may be reasons why you can't get it fully put away, especially if it needs to go somewhere remote, upstairs, attic, basement. However, you can at least put it closer to the final destination. So you can put it on the stairs so that when you go up, you will take it with you, okay? That's better than having it on the kitchen counter, which is the #1 spot for piling, right? If you're in the kitchen, you know everyone loves the kitchen counter for putting stuff down. Okay. And here's the quote. If you put things away in a too tidy way, then you will only find what you are looking for. So it can only help you. I have never had somebody say, gee, I wish I had not put it that back where it belongs, and that made it harder. It just makes it easier, not harder. Right? Now, some of you might be sitting here thinking, that's probably a good idea, but it's not going to happen. So we're going to move on to habit number 2. Habit number 2 is sort mail daily. Daily. Every day, except for Sunday. That's your day off on the mail. And perhaps Saturday if the post office pulls away Saturday delivery. Now here's a thought on mail. I'm an organizer, I'm in people's houses, I see the mail. We have a little struggle with mail because mail really is a word that describes how stuff gets to us. It doesn't describe what it is. It just describes how it came. What comes is actually lots of different things that come into our mailboxes. There's papers and magazines that we might want to read. There's bills we have to pay. There's invitations we need to respond to. There's insurance paperwork we have to complete. There's a lot of trash that we need to recycle. It's all different kinds of things, all mixed together. Mostly paper, but not exclusively, right? So we need to think about it as what it is, not the way it came. And the way to do this is to sort it every day. You don't have to take care of every element. You don't have to sit down and pay every bill every day. But you need to sort it out into what it actually is. This will make it easier for you to process it when the time comes around to do so. So the first thing to do is bring the mail in when you have the time to sort it. It's going to take 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes. That's all it's going to take. However, we are tempted to just pick it up on our way back in. Maybe when we're on the way back in and our car is full of groceries and the kids are there and we're making dinner and what do you do with the mail when that happens? You pile it, right? And you say, I'll get to it later. So you've just made work for yourself, and maybe you forget later, and then something else goes on top of it. Don't bring it in until you're ready to spend the 2 to 3 minutes. It's not going to rot in the mailbox, I promise. You could even leave it overnight, rock the world, it'll still be there. Okay? And what are we going to do? First thing we're going to do is take away all the trash. Or if you're lucky, like here we are in Darien, the recycling, right? That includes opening the bills and taking out all those flyers that they stick in there because you're trying to sell you stuff that I know you're not going to read anyway. Just get rid of them. You're going to reduce your amount of paperwork. You can throw out the outer envelope. You can throw out all the advertising, catalogs, whatever. Anything you don't want that has personal information, you should shred, especially account numbers. Name and address, people feel differently on that. I shred it, but we've had our identity stolen, so we just take extra precaution. I just tear off, the cover that has my name and address, and shred that. Any catalogs you don't want, get rid of all that first. Now we've already probably reduced the stack by at least half, maybe more, right? Now here's the key. We want to take what's left and group it by what kind of action I need to take on it. So I might have a pile called to pay, and I might have a pile called to read, articles or a brochure or something. I might have a pile called to respond or to call. Some of my clients have a file where they put stuff that they want to input into their computer, like contacts to add and stuff I need to key in. You may be different depending on what you do, but that's the idea. Now, why is this helpful? This is helpful because as you go through the week and you sit down, you say, okay, Tuesday I have about an hour and a half, I'm gonna pay bills. Well, it's so easy now. You just sit down with your to-pay, you open it up, you've already gotten rid of all the garbage, you pay them. It's so much easier. Or maybe you're on the way to take your daughter to the orthodontist and you know you're going to be sitting there for a long time at this particular doctor, so you just grab your to-read file. You might burn through some of it while you're sitting there waiting. It's a lot easier. If you had to go through a big pile and say, where is that article I wanted to read? You're just not going to do it. It takes too much time. It's easier to act if you've already made the action files. Okay? 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes, that's all. And it will really save you a lot of time. Make you feel more effective and efficient. All right, so maybe you're like, look, I'm not into sorting the mail and I'm not putting it away today, so we're gonna move on. Here's our third one. Establish a staging area. This is a really great thing to do. If you don't know what a staging area is, all it is a safe space, hence not the kitchen counter, which is not a safe space where nobody else is going to come and disturb and disrupt what you've put out. And this is the place that you're going to put what you need for tomorrow. Or if you're working maybe in your office, let's say it's your job to show up at the meeting with all this stuff or to take this on the trip, you can make a pile. That's for my meeting on Tuesday. That's for my trip to LA on Friday. This is 2 reasons to be helpful. The first one is that sometimes when you have something coming up, you think of things you need to bring, not at the exact moment when you've scheduled to allot yourself time to prepare. So frequently for me, I will think, oh, I need to bring those tickets. And I'll think it while I'm, cooking the beans. So I can run over, get the tickets, and put them in the staging area right when I'm thinking about it. Whereas if I waited, I might forget them. So that's one really nice feature. The other thing that's nice about it is that when the next day rolls around, you have a higher confidence level that you have what you need. Now I know that you might say I have plenty of time in the morning to get together everything I need. I don't need to set it up the night before. And I'm willing to admit that maybe even 90% of the time, that's true. However, about 10% of the time, you will wake up to what I call the unexpected. The pipes are frozen. I don't have any heat. The dog is sick. My child is sick. The car won't start. My hairdryer broke halfway through drying my hair. Something that you weren't planning on that takes that precious maybe 15 or 20 minutes you had been counting on to gather your thoughts and gather your things. And it's been my experience that the 10% of days when the unexpected happens are rarely the days when you have nothing to do but deal with the unexpected. It's typically the day that you have no spare time from end to end. That is the day when the heat's gonna go, right? So rather than put yourself in that very stressful position, set it up the night before, set it up the day before. If you're going on a trip, start packing 3 weeks before if that's what it is. Set up an area. Florida trip, right? And when you remember, ooh, sunscreen, put it there. Then you won't forget it later. This is a picture of a staging area. This one's very pretty. It doesn't need to be this pretty, but the idea here is that every family member should have a spot where they can put their stuff for the next day. This one's got these nice little frames and these clips on the clipboards where you could hang like a permission slip that needs to go tomorrow or whatever. If you have teenagers, this probably won't work because they're not gonna come down at night and hang their backpack on the hook. It's just not gonna happen. Maybe you could shovel a spot on their floor and they could put their stuff there. They're gonna keep everything up in their room where they want it. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter if it's pretty. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't need to all be in the same spot, but it's a really good habit to help your kids and anyone in your family have a space and tell the other family members, don't mess with that. That's her staging area. Okay, we got 3 down. Let's move on. Number 4. You may have, this is for the people whose stuff is in great shape, but they have a little trouble getting their priorities taken care of. Okay, tackle the hardest task first. Now, it's human nature, this is every human, to avoid 2 kinds of tasks on our list. Number 1, the unpleasant. That for me is making beds. I hate making beds. And number 2, the unknown. So perhaps think about something you've never done before and you're not really sure how to go about it and it feels sort of queasy. You know, maybe it's a student who has a long-term project and they have no idea how to start. It makes them feel uneasy, right? So what is the natural thing that we do with those 2 kinds of tasks is we avoid them. We procrastinate them. We put off dealing with them. And of course, this does not make things better. This only makes things worse. So here's this little funny graphic. The stages of procrastination. So number 1 is false security, where you tell yourself like, oh, I'm good. I know how to handle this. This is no big deal. And then maybe you move on to laziness, like, I probably should be doing this, but nah, I don't think so. I'm just gonna, watch some TV. Then the heat starts to build a little bit. You start to feel a little bit queasy about it. You start to make some excuses. I'm gonna get to that. I'm just too busy right now, right? Then as you get even closer to when it's supposed to be done, you move into something even more severe, like denial. Oh, I still have plenty of time. I can just pull the all-nighter, right? And it always ends in the last stage, which is crisis. And all that you've done is taken something that was unpleasant or difficult or unknown, challenging, and layered on top of it time pressure. So all you've done is make it harder. Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat That Frog. Eat That Frog. And the idea is if you have a frog on your to-do list, just go ahead and eat that sucker and get it over with. And then the rest of your list is going to look really nice, and your day is going to improve. And if it's something that's big and you can't just knock it out over time, but it's something you don't know how to do, and I talked to some of my kids, my students about this, even if you just schedule one task, one step in the process, that will decompress some of your stress because you will have, okay, I did something, right? And probably taking one step will lead you to another step you can take. So you make one call and they give you someone, oh no, I'm not the right person, but if you call so-and-so, she can help you. Or maybe if you go to the library, you can look this up, right? So taking any step at all on the thing you don't want to do will only have a positive impact on your stress level. So when you look at your to-do list, try to encourage yourself to just go ahead and do that hard thing first. And then you're going to feel better. All right, that's our 4th. Moving right along. If 1 to 4 are not appealing, maybe number 5 will hit you. Number 5 is finish. And this one is for anybody out there who's got a few unfinished projects about the house or the office. Maybe you even finished the project, but the supplies are still out, taking up space, because you didn't feel like cleaning them up. Because frankly, that's not fun. I get it. But it's still undone. Unfortunately, unfinished projects make us feel like losers. It is a negative feeling. Every time you walk by and see the stack of supplies or the half-painted thing, it's just a negative feeling. On contrary, few things are as energizing and as good for our self-esteem as finishing, being like, check, I did it, it's done, I can erase it, I never have to deal with it. It's that feeling of final exams are over. You know, that was a wonderful feeling when I was a student. That's a gift you give yourself when you finish. I thought this was kind of funny. Especially coming from Lowe's, you know, come get supplies. I don't know, maybe it just fell apart. Maybe it's not unfinished, but I thought it was kind of funny. So if you have some projects, just think about going home and scheduling on your to-do list the next step that's required for that project. If all you did today was walk home and say, I'm finally going to paint that stupid dresser that I've been wanting to paint. And that means the first thing I need to do is pick a color. So tomorrow I'm going to go pick a color. Now you're back on the road to finishing. And you'll feel great. Just keep scheduling the next step. Force yourself to schedule the next step until it's finished. And the last step will probably be clean up. So make sure you do that one too. All right, that was number 5. Number 6. So it's my experience that many of us feel that we never have enough time. Everyone is very busy. I really appreciate that you're here tonight because I know how busy you are. Taking an hour out of an evening is a sacrifice. And I don't want to stand here and say, oh, you have time, you're not using it well, or any of that. Everyone is crunched. It's just part of reality. And a lot of stuff that we want to do, we don't get to because there really are projects that take large chunks of time. And we can't seem to clear our schedule to have a weekend or whatever. So that's not about these. This is more about saying, I really don't have that much time, but maybe thinking about how to use even the little bits of time that you do have. Since the advent of phones, we have largely filled our small chunks of time looking at our phones or being on our computers, right? You think, well, I've only got 10 minutes, I'm just gonna look at Facebook, or I'm just gonna check the news, because it's not enough time to do anything else, right? And frequently, though we think we're only gonna spend 10 minutes, suddenly we look up, we're like, oh, I've been on Pinterest for half an hour, you know? Boop. So that has become a way to sort of use up a small amount of time, and it's not all that productive. The internet and TV. It used to be more TV, now we tend to go to the internet more. But if you think about it, let's say you only have 10 minutes 3 times a day. 10 minutes. And this, I got thinking about this from someone who was a fitness person, and I was asking her, but I don't have any time to exercise. I mean, I've got like 10 minutes a day. And she said to me, well, 10 minutes is a lot. And I said, 10 minutes a day is a lot? She said, if you exercise 10 minutes every day, that's a lot. That's going to add up. And that has really stuck with me ever since then. Because 10 minutes every day does add up. And if you think about how much time you may be spending, maybe you are losing some time that you could use elsewhere. So I'm going to show you a list. This is just my list. You may create your own list, but this is just to get you thinking of some ways that you might want to use a small bit of time. Grab your phone and delete emails. Everybody has junk mail. You're stuck at a doctor's office waiting. Delete away. Got nothing else to do anyway. Similarly, perhaps if you are someone who loves to take photos, you might have some photos that you don't really need anymore. Delete them. Maybe if you've been sorting your mail every day, you have a to-shred bin under your table. That's a quick thing you can do in 5 minutes. You can shred a lot of paper in 5 minutes. Maybe if you've been sorting your mail and you now have a to-read folder, or maybe you've got something you've been wanting to read on your phone. Hey, you can read something in 10 minutes. You can read an article, right? Let's say you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, the roast is in the oven, everybody's going to be gathered around in 15 minutes, not really enough time to do anything else, you have to stay in the kitchen because you're cooking. Hey, empty one drawer, just one. Empty it out, wipe it out, throw away the things that ended up in there that shouldn't be there, put your stuff back. You can do that in 10 minutes. And think about it. If you did that for 2 weeks, the whole kitchen is spotless at this point. And people are going to go like, wow, your drawers are so nice, you're so organized, you know, because you used 10 minutes to clean out a drawer. Same idea applies to a shelf. Go clean off the shelf. I personally am a big fan of sharp pencils, so if I have a small block of time, I'll go over and sharpen all the pencils. Which tomorrow means I go over and empty the sharpener of the pencil shavings. Small task, but maybe you just go over to your bulletin board. You know how you tend to be really good about putting stuff on and really lousy about taking stuff off, so that suddenly you realize the calendar from 2008 is still up? This is the time. Just go over. Even if you only get to the top half of it, that's fine. Tomorrow maybe you'll have 10 more minutes and you'll do the bottom half. 2 days, you've got your bulletin board cleared off. Maybe, as I said, you've got some you've had some cards or pieces of paper that you've written down phone numbers on. That's a great time to pull out your phone and add them to your contacts. Or you've got a stack of magazines and catalogs that you realize a bunch of them are really old. That's a great thing. Just sort them. You don't have to read them even. Just sort them and throw out the ones that are old. Maybe you want to do number 1 and you say, I'm going to go put it away, you know, something that's been sitting there. Update your apps is another one. That little red number appears all the time. That doesn't take very long, but you could get it started. So those are just some ideas. You could have your own ideas of little things that you start seeing around your space. And don't hesitate to write them down and hang them up on the inside of a cabinet. Because then you'll remember, oh, I've got 10 minutes. What could I do? And open up and look. It's a good little habit. All right, number 7, we're moving into the home stretch. Get rid of trash. And I know this probably sounds obvious, but I'm telling you, I'm in people's spaces all the time. Look around. You probably have some trash, especially in your car. You probably have some trash. But even aside from the obvious trash, we have a tendency to hold on to things that we really shouldn't be, right? So what are some of those things? Well, as I was just saying, old catalogs would be an example. Frankly, the prices aren't even relevant if you hold on to them too long, and half the time they'll be sold out if you get around to ordering it 6 months later. Expired paperwork. Some paperwork you need to keep, I understand, for legal records, accounting, taxes, but some of it's just frankly old, and you don't need it, and it's cluttering up your space, so get rid of it. Dead food. This is another common find in the teenagers' room. Car clutter. Most people have stuff in their car. Hey, while the gas is running and you're standing outside anyway, throw it away. Clothing that doesn't fit, clothing we don't wear, clothing that we frankly don't like. Do you have anything you don't like and you still have it because somebody gave it to you and you feel guilty like I shouldn't get rid of this? Even though I hate it and I look terrible in it? Get rid of it. The person would feel badly to know that you feel yucky about it and you're keeping it out of guilt. Books that we've read. Now, if it's a favorite classic and you're going to reread it, fine. But most paperback books, we don't reread. And they are the ultimate reusable. Pass them on, right? They're a great thing to pass on. Don't let them build up. Or just come to the library and check them out. That's what I do. And then there are a plethora of things that I see in almost every house that people have, you know, those vases that come along free and they pile up and you think I shouldn't get rid of them. Yes, you should. You know, how many sports cups can we fit in the cabinet so that you open the cabinet and all this plastic falls on your head? Mugs, you know, because mugs are a fun gift, so we all give them because they're cute and everything, but after a while, cull them, get rid of a few. Cords. If you don't know where that cord goes, if you can't figure out what it belongs to, get rid of it. And anything you buy that has a cord, I want you to put a label on it right away. My phone, or phone to the wall, or whatever it takes, okay? And others. But this is the idea. Take some time, even if it's 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. You can take one box down from the attic and put it there and deal with it. You know, just one box. And get rid of what you don't need to be holding on to. All right, 3 left. This one is sort of a modified version of number 1, which was put things away now. And this is particularly focused about when you come in the door, right? And you've got all this stuff. What do you do when you walk in the door and you've got all your stuff? You dump it, right? You really have to dump it. You have to dump it because you have to take your coat off, put your stuff down. But here's the thing. You have to then go put away what you've dumped. Even if you don't put away everything else in your life, maybe you say, okay, I can do the door. I'm just going to focus on when I walk in the door. And at a minimum, everybody needs to have a place near the door for your keys, preferably a ring, coats where you can hang them, hooks beat hangers. Nobody likes hangers. Nobody likes hangers. Your bag, whether it's a briefcase or a purse or a backpack, a place where you're going to put it. Hang it, stick it, whatever. A place where you always put it. Change, especially men tend to carry change right in your pockets. A dish, a jar, something, a designated place. And then maybe glasses, sunglasses, or your regular glasses. And then, everybody has different stuff they regularly carry. So if there's something you always carry, think about it. Maybe it's your phone. That's another really common one. Where am I going to put my phone when I walk in? And if you can't put it away, when maybe you walked in with a bag of clothing from the mall, and you don't want to run upstairs right now because you've got to cook dinner or you're watching a baby or whatever, put it on the stairs. Get it one step closer to being away. Okay? Always get it one step closer. A mini version of put it away now. Okay, we got 2 left. Number 9. I call this one today, tomorrow, 10. This is a time management tip. So if you struggle with time and feeling out of control, and I'm always crunched, this is the one for you. So most of our anxiety about time comes from feeling sort of out of control when things surprise us or they creep up on us. So this would be when you open your book and are like, oh my gosh, the paper's due Friday and it's Thursday. Or you look at tomorrow and realize, I'm supposed to be 3 places at the exact same time. And that's stressful, right? Or, oh, I was supposed to return that call yesterday. Shoot. Right? Those are the things that give us agita and make us feel like losers, like, oh, I'm blowing it, I feel badly about myself. So instead, if you want to be organized, this is what I suggest. This is what I do. If I have a clear view of what's coming up, obviously I can't plan for the unexpected, for the pipes bursting, but I can know what I am expecting is coming up. And it has 2 elements to it. I want you to think about your appointments, and that's really anything you need to do at a specific time. So it could be going to a meeting, it could be picking a child up at school, it could be a conference call that you're supposed to be on from 2 to 3, whatever, okay? And, very importantly, it's your to-dos. So I am a really big fan of scheduling your to-dos, not just writing them on a random piece of paper, but actually deciding when you're going to do each of them. I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to do this next week on Friday, and I'm going to write it down so I know when I'm going to do it. So we're going to look at those 2 things. We're going to look at them for today and tomorrow in great, great depth. I want you to almost be able to visualize your day. You can do it in the morning, you can do it in the night before, you can do it both. But this is like, okay, I'm going to get up, going to have breakfast, going to exercise from here to here, then I'm going to go here, then I'm going to come home, then I'm going to pay bills for 2 hours, then I've got to go over here and make a call. Really detail, okay, for today and tomorrow. And then always be aware of the upcoming 10 days for the big stuff. This way, you will see, oh, you know what? Next Friday, I have a meeting and I'm supposed to pick her up. That's a problem. It's not a huge problem if you have 10 days to try to find an alternative. It's a big problem if it's the night before. So every day, whether it's the morning or the evening, you say, what am I doing tomorrow? What am I doing the next day? Detail. And then we just flip ahead, right? I got that coming. Yep. Done. It takes 5 minutes. It will spare you a lot of pain. All right, we're getting very close. That was the 10 days. We're almost done. Number 10. So here's the thing. We're all tired, right? At bedtime. We're all very tired. And I get it. I'm not saying you're not. You probably are. Probably very tired, exhausted. And it's very tempting to just crash and say, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm too tired, right? But the thing is that what you do when you just leave something for yourself tomorrow is you're setting yourself up to have to kind of start tomorrow a little behind the 8 ball. And that's just not fun. You know? Instead, you can give yourself a gift by leaving everything in your space just the way it needs to be so that you can hit the ground running in the morning. Especially if the unexpected happens, right? You'll be really glad. So what you do is you walk around, you look, you take stuff, put stuff away. Where does it live? I'm going to put it back in its spot. Here's where you get bonus points if you've been following all 10, right? If you decided you were going to use a staging area, check that you've got everything you need in your staging area. Review your today, tomorrow, 10, right? You know what's coming ahead. And what you do is, this is the way you leave yourself for sunrise. With peace, with a plan, with an idea of what's coming. Your stuff is where you need it to be. You'll be able to find it when you need to leave tomorrow. And frankly, it might just be more pleasant to look at. Now, last thing I'll say is, if you share a space with someone else, you may say, well, I would love to do this, but so-and-so will come in and put stuff all over it, and it's going to be messed up by someone else. And that may be true, especially if you share space. But here's the thing. At least do it for the little part of space you control. If it's just the kitchen counter, if that's all you've got, then focus on that. If you have a little desk somewhere, focus on that. If you have an entry table or a place, focus on that. Focus on what you can control first. And if other people in your family see, wow, you know, she has got her act together and her space always looks nice, then they might, you know, be a little more respectful and might be willing to try a little bit. No.
Then they put their stuff in your stuff.
I know. That's why the kitchen counter is always so popular, because you clear it off to cook, and then here comes everybody putting stuff on top. But try to give yourself a gift. That's the way I want you to think about it. Give yourself a gift by making it nice for yourself the next day. Make tomorrow easier rather than harder. Okay? So that's it. Those are your 10 habits. Any questions? Everybody's very quiet. Yes.
I know you do personal consultation in the home. Do you ever help teenagers?
I do help teenagers. Yes, I do. She said, I know you do consultations in the home. Do you ever help teenagers? Yes, I do. They have their own unique set of issues. But listen, think about how we started with habits. If a teenager forms a good habit, they'll carry it on. So it's really worthwhile to help them.
And how much time do you start with them?
I always start by meeting with people for free, just to come in and talk about what their situation is, and then we talk about how long we might want to work together.
Okay.
So, you know, we always start just having a conversation.
I related to your red and blue M&Ms as I came in, and to your remarks about instant versus deferred gratification.
Yeah.
So I grabbed the M&Ms and left the pencil out there, your nice coffin pencils, and I'm very annoyed at you.
Look, I think everything's better with chocolate, so that's why I have M&Ms.
It matches your marketing logo.
Yeah, I'm a red, white, and blue. My tagline is freedom through organization, because I believe being organized is a very freeing feeling. So that's where that comes from. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
How about our electronic world?
Right.
Completely befuddled by
Yes.
his boxes.
So the question is about the electronic world. So there's a couple of elements, right? Email, really the concept is the same as what comes into the physical mailbox. What comes in needs to be sorted, either trashed or put into folders that designate the type of action you need to take. If an email can be handled in 90 seconds or less, I say handle it on the spot. Just dispense with it. If it's going to take more time than that, then don't feel weird about putting it in a folder that says, I need to call them, or I need to research this, or whatever. And then schedule time to go back and tackle those folders. The sorting process doesn't take that long. It's the sitting down and working on it that takes the real time. And that's what you want to know in your today, tomorrow, 10. Okay, tomorrow I'm spending from 10 to noon working on that folder. But it's the same principle. We have this little saying, Ohio in organizing land, only handle it once. So you don't want to keep opening it and then it's marked and you forget that you read it and then it moves down into your list and then you lose it. So it's better to put it someplace where you're going to remember to tackle it. Does that answer your question?
It's helpful.
It's a big question. Yeah, there's a lot of elements to it, not to mention the physical paraphernalia of the electronics. Yeah. Yeah.
So back to teenagers, would you spend that time in their room? Do you know what I mean? Because that's where they keep the papers from 6th grade.
Right.
That's where they collect too many CDs or books that they're not
Right.
going to read. That's really their space.
Yes. So here's the thing with teenagers. You can't hire me to come in and do their room for you because the room's driving you crazy, okay? That will just create a lot of friction because I can come in and organize their room, but they're going to hate me and they're going to hate you because you brought me in, right? So what you have to do is get to a place where the teenager says, yes, I am interested in an improvement. I'm interested in learning. I would be willing to work on this. And then I would prefer to work with them, with you in the background, rather than work for you. Because it is their space. And maybe be very comfortable with clothes all over the floor. And I say, that's okay. If they're operating and they're functioning, then that's okay. Close the door, you know. It's a temporary stage, you know, let them be. They have a lot going on. But if the child's struggling, because they're losing things all the time or something like that, and they're having a functioning issue, then we can talk and say, look, you're hurt, you're not having a good time, you're stressed. So let's talk about how to make you not so stressed out and to have something better. But they have to be willing, they have to be on board, or it'll just backfire. Anybody else? Yeah.
It helps to have a sense of humor about all
It does, yeah. It definitely helps to have a sense of humor. I mean, it's just stuff and organizing, you know. We don't have to get too crazy about it. You know, we might as well have a good time. We can make progress and have fun all at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you.